Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over 10 new infinite or instant win combos, game winning combos with Edge of Eternities. Now, some of these are a little bit janky, but some of these are somewhat competitive, I would say. We'll have to see kind of how standard shakes out. And some of these are sort of for Pioneer or older formats as well, but a decent amount are for standard. So just keep that in mind as we go through these 10 new infinite or instant win combos. So number one, a few that's going to use the warp ability in combination with the Frost Cliff Siege. Here on the left, we've got the Mightform Harmonizer, which is a 4-mana 4/4 insect druid. It has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the power of target creature you control until end of turn. And it's got warp for 3 mana. So what you can do with the Harmonizer is you can play the Siege on turn 3. So we're using the Siege here mostly for the Teamer mode to give all your creatures +1 power, trample, and haste. And then if you do this on turn 3, you could even do it on turn 2 with the Land War Elves in standard. But turn 3, if you play this, turn 4, then we're going to use the Warp ability to put the 4/4 into play and then play a Fable Passage as our 4th land, which will then trigger the Landfall ability. Now, it gets a +1 power here because of the Siege, so its power is actually 5. So it's going to double its power to 10, crack the Fable Passage, and then its power is going to go to 20, doubled again. And it will also have trample and haste, so you can attack in for 20 damage right away and just win the game. And your opponent probably won't see it coming. So this one, I don't know, seems pretty powerful. I think this Harmonizer card is very good and could see play in some landfall decks. It also has some pretty cool combos. Let me know if there's any others in the chat below if you have any other cool combos with this card, but I think there's some other cool instant win combos with it. But this is just one that could win the game on turn 4, or again, turn 3 potentially if you have a Land War Elves on turn 1. So let's go to another sort of warp combo here, which is similar to the one we just talked about, which uses again the Frost Cliff Siege and the Teamer mode to give all your creatures +1 power, trample, and haste. This one is using the Bygon Colossus. This one also has warp for 3, and it is a 9/9 creature. So, pretty big creature you get just by paying 3 mana. And again, with the Siege out, if you play this, you can get a 10 power haste and trample attack in with the warp, because again the warp ability they don't warp out until the end of turn, so you're good to go to attack with this if it has haste. So if you have the Siege out again on turn 3, turn 4 you play the Colossus for 3, put in a 10 power attacker, trample and haste, get in for 10 damage potentially, and then just use the Calicel swords burned together, which deals damage equal to its power to your opponent, and then that's another 10 damage. So turn 4, again, if you have Land War Elves, this one's a little harder. Maybe with Land War Elves, if you're going to be playing these 3 colors, but you could play a 4-color deck, or just use this for the red and not even worry about the black mana cost of the Calicel sword, and just kind of try to play this combo on turn 4 or turn 3 as well, but more likely turn 4. Land War Elves tend to die a lot on turn 1. But anyways, 20 damage again with this warp mechanic. So I think this warp mechanic, especially in combination with the Siege, could enable a lot of kind of cool instant win combos. All right, let's go to our next combo here, which really is an instant kill combo no matter how much life your opponent has. Those other ones did exactly 20, but if your opponent gained life, that could not work. This one will work no matter what life total they're at. It uses the new Alfarel. I believe that's how you pronounce this. 5 mana for a 3/3. It's got Ward, discard a card at random, and Void whenever it attacks. If a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell was warped this turn, defending player loses half their life, rounded up. So this does makes the opponent lose half their life if you just attack with it. You don't even have to get in combat damage to the opponent. So pretty powerful ability on this creature, and it has some protection. So if you just play this out on turn 5, it will cost your opponent more resources to remove it, but it does create an infinite kill with Bloodletter, as a lot of cards do. But this is another one that kind of curves into it. especially if you have something that can give the Alpharel haste, and especially if that thing will trigger this void ability as well. So I was thinking something like Torch Courier, if you had that out, not standard legal, Pioneer legal, but maybe there's some other standard card I'm not thinking of that can sacrifice to give this haste, so you could attack with it right away and get its ability. So you could curve the Bloodletter, which says if an opponent would lose life during a turn, lose twice that much life, and then doing half their life is always going to be an instant kill, no matter how much life your opponent has. So pretty exciting there. In Commander, too, this if this is your Commander, you could play Bloodletter and have this as part of your combo piece. So that's kind of exciting as well in Commander. But yeah, let me know in the comments below if there's any other Torch Courier type cards I'm not thinking about that could make this work in Standard. But besides that, you could just play out these or play this on turn 5, and then turn 6, play the Bloodletter, and then warp something in or destroy one of your opponent's creatures, sacrifice one of your things, and then attack for the instant win that way. Cool. So let's go on to our next combo here using the Biotech Specialist. A very strong card, I think, which is 2 mana for a 1/3. And when it enters, you create a lander token. That's a token that you can sacrifice for 2 to search for a basic land card and put it into play tapped. And then it says whenever you sacrifice an artifact, it deals 2 damage to target opponent. Very powerful effect. And if you can sacrifice a bunch of artifacts in one turn, then obviously you just win. Very nice with treasure tokens, but also any other tokens. It gives you a lander token, which is kind of nice, sort of 2 damage wrapped up in this card already. And of course, if you have multiples of this is very good. So you could kind of play this combo, I think, in many different ways. The easiest way I could think of to get just a bunch of treasure tokens that could sacrifice themselves is Brass's Bounty. And even if you have 2 of these in your hand, say you have this, you could even use the lander token to ramp up to the Brass's Bounty. And then you play the Brass's Bounty, you get 7 treasure tokens, assuming you have 7 lands. Sacrifice all of them, that's 14 damage. Maybe 2 damage already from the lander token. You could use that mana to play maybe another one or any other card that creates more treasure tokens and sacrifice them. And maybe get up to 20 damage in one turn with this guy. So I think I'm going to try to build around this Biotech Specialist. Very strong ability and can work with lots of different tokens. Let me know if you have any other cool combos with this one, but this is sort of the instant win combo I could think of. Again, you could use maybe 2 of these in a Brass's Bounty, and that would also be a lethal one turn kill. Okay, let's go to our next combo here, which is Terminal Velocity. Pretty cool card. 6 mana for a sorcery. When you can put an artifact or creature card from your hand onto the battlefield, it gains haste, and the permanent, when it leaves the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its mana value. Each creature, and at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice this permanent. So put something into play for free, gives it haste. It could be an artifact as well, and you sacrifice it and kind of wipe the board. But with Jumbo Cactuar, this is sort of could be an instant win with the Terminal Velocity. Again, if your opponent just has no creatures back, then this would attack for the win. So that could be pretty cool. But if you need trample or something like Garrick's Uprising is the one I could think of that could give all your creatures trample. I'm sure there's other ways that you could give Cactuar trample. This one just sort of sits in play and is hard to remove. So I thought of the Garrick's Uprising. I'm sure you could use some other things. And again, this by itself, again, if your opponent doesn't have blockers, could be lethal. Terminal Velocity is a really powerful card in general. I think there's other, putting anything into play and giving a haste could just win you the game, depending on what your opponent's life total is. If you say put a Galta into play or something like that, and attacked for the win. But Jumbo Cactuar is almost always a lethal attack, so that's the one I thought of first. But let me know if there's any cool combos you're thinking of with Terminal Velocity as well. Okay, let's go to our next combo here. I got 2 combos that kind of use the Rapacious Dragon and Lily Splash Mentor to make infinite treasures. One uses the Exalted Sunborn. This card is very powerful, and I think there's a lot of cool combos you can do with it. This one is sort of just an infinite treasures one. It says if one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And maybe this is powerful because of this warp ability, which is pretty cheap. So you could get this combo off a little cheaper than if you use other cards that double up tokens. But if you have Rapacious Dragon, when it comes into play, it creates 2 treasure tokens. And then with Lily Splash Mentor, you can pay 3 life to exile a creature and then return it to the battlefield. It gets a counter, but you kind of get the 2 mana back when the dragon comes back into play. You spent 3 mana. But if you have any way to double up these tokens, such as with the Exalted Sunborn, then you're actually kind of netting a mana each time you go through this loop. And then you'll get infinite treasures, infinite mana. From there, it's not too hard to win usually. If you have anything else that you can exile and return, you can do this ability infinite times as well, which could be cool. So it kind of makes this combo a lot cheaper if you can kind of just warp in for 2 mana instead of any of the other doubling effects usually cost more than that, and also could give you some redundancy to this combo. Let's go to the next one, which is essentially a similar or exact combo, but using the Starfield Vocalist, and maybe even better because it is on color with the Mentor here. But the Vocalist says if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, the ability triggers an additional time. So again, that'll still trigger this ability twice, which will then give you 4 treasure tokens, and then you're basically netting a mana every time you go through this loop if you have the Vocalist out. And again, the warp ability is 2. So you could play all 4 of those cards in the same deck to have more redundancy. This is kind of a janky combo, I would say. These cards are quite expensive to use, but again, warping for 2 mana does make it a bit cheaper to be able to go infinite with them. So something to consider if you want some fun combo and standard. Okay, let's go to the Donsire combo. This one, very fun. I posted this one on my Twitter account as well. And this is a 5 mana spacecraft with station. So you tap your creatures to add um, charge counters to it. I always forget what the counters are called. I want to call them station counters, but they're not station counters. Charge counters. With 10 plus, whenever you attack, it deals 100 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. So mostly using it for this ability. And if you do Systems Override on the Donsire, this immediately gives it 10 charge counters right away. So that would unlock this ability. And if you have Screaming Nemesis out and you attack with it, it'll trigger this ability to do 100 damage to anything. If you do 100 damage to your Screaming Nemesis, then you can redirect it back to your opponent's face to take 100. So pretty powerful if you can get this off. Does require a bit of setup and a lot of mana. Probably mostly a janky fun combo, but certainly seems pretty fun to have your opponent take 100. There are some other redundancies in standard. Obviously, if you just have enough power of creatures in play, you can get this up to 10 power, and then maybe attack right away with the Screaming Nemesis and win the game the same turn you play the Donsire. This is sort of just like one card that gets it up to 10 immediately, which is kind of nice. And in the same color as Screaming Nemesis. And then there are, I think there's another card in standard that redirects damage to your opponent's face, which I think is a black card. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head right now, but you could use that as well. This is sort of maybe the most mana efficient and least cards needed to just make this combo work. So certainly a fun one and something I'll maybe try to brew around on the channel. So look forward to that with the gameplay when the set releases on Arena. Okay, next up we've got Pain for All combo. This is an aura for 3 mana and an enchanted creature you control. When it enters, enchanted creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. And then when enchanted creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. So you could kind of use this with the previous combo, with the Donsire combo doing 100 damage, as well to get like another Screaming Nemesis effect. But I was thinking of Storm Herald combo in Pioneer and older formats could use this with Colossification to just instantly win the game, do 23 damage if you have Colossification, and the Pain for All in your graveyard. You can use the Storm Herald effect, which says when it enters the battlefield, return any number of horror cards from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to creatures you control, and then you exile those at the beginning of the next end step. But that doesn't matter. And then if the auras would leave the battlefield, exile them instead of putting them anywhere. And so you don't have to worry about that because your opponent's most likely going to be lose the game if you deal 23 damage, or if there's any other auras, you can bring those all back. But Classification gives 20 power to your creatures, so it doesn't matter if it taps it down. You don't have to even attack with it, and just kind of bring those both back. Even as early as turn 3 with Stormhail, it could be very powerful if you manage to get both of these in the graveyard by then. But there are some efficient ways of filling up your graveyard as well in Pioneer and older formats, maybe Modern. This could be something to consider as well. Yeah, I don't think there's any way in Standard to bring two auras back at the same time, as far as I can tell, or I know in Standard. But let me know in the comments below if there's any combos, other cool combos you can think of for Pain for All. Definitely an interesting one, and has some cool combo potential, and also just some value potential of just maybe as a removal spell, and then maybe using this ability to combo, such as with the Donsire. Okay, let's go to our final combo here, which uses the Timeline color. This is 2 mana for 2/2 haste, and it says if you can cast this card from your graveyard using its warp ability, and then warp for only 1 mana and pay 2 life. So warp again is you can play it from your hand, but the timeline color you can play it from your graveyard, which is very powerful. It just kind of keeps coming back. If you have a way to sacrifice it and put it into the graveyard, you can just keep paying 1 mana and 2 life to bring it back. So if you have something like the Phyrexian Altar, which sacrifices the creature to add a mana, you're kind of getting the mana that you would pay to warp it back. So you can kind of sacrifice it infinite times, but you also have to pay 2 life. So if you have things that gain life, but also do damage to your opponent, I was thinking of the Vein Ripper here because this is the most kind of just one card that encapsulates having to gain 2 life every time a creature dies, but also does 2 damage to your opponent, makes them lose 2 life. So if you have all of these out, this just does infinite life loss for your opponent. So you're negating you're negating the 2 life loss here by gaining 2 life every time you go through the loop of the altar and the color. There may be some other cards besides the altar you can use. Let me know in the comments below if there's any other things. And then with the Vein Ripper, there is, if you have any other combination of creatures, there's quite a few creatures in Magic that, or other effects too, that say when a creature dies, your opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. If you have 2 of those out, this kind of works the same, but this is the most sort of card efficient way of creating this combo. So let me know in the comments below what you think about any of these 10 instant win or infinite combos. Hope you enjoyed the video. I do think some of them could see some play with competitive Standard, maybe. Most of them are probably just sort of magical Christmas land and fun to think about. But let me know in the comments below what you think about these combos and any other ones that you're brewing with Edge of Eternities. What are you excited to see? And anything, any suggestions for the channel as I'm brewing decks for the next Standard season. So pretty exciting. We're getting rotation and a bunch of new cool cards to brew with. I'm looking forward to it. So thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.